John Whittle with the Big Spur. Sorry, we're a little delayed, man. But we're always glad to have you. Good morning.
Great to see you guys. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. That's just more time for John to fill up the bird feeder and get this segment the proper ambient noise that it deserves.
There we go. I've got some of them. What are those cicada things that make the little, or maybe they're just crickets? Yeah. I don't know. I got some of those noisemakers as well.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, we got a ton around here. I like cicadas though. So people, that's too loud. To me, it feels like nature. It's better than cars driving by. All right, John, I do want to talk to you about the CWS and for what it's. Oh, I do have to read this, by the way. Statistician Derek Scott sent me an early morning text, but he won't claim it. He said he read it somewhere. The Pac-12 has not had 3 teams in Omaha since 1988. That's number one. And this is the first time since 1957 that the World Series doesn't have a team making back-to-back appearances, which obviously means South Carolina's back-to-back World Series is going to hold because they're the last one to do it. I think one of only 6 teams ever. But they're trying to rebuild to get back there, John, and they're having to utilize the transfer portal to be able to do that. And one of the major deficiencies of this program this past season, for a multitude of reasons, was the pitching staff. But in the last few days, they have added a couple of power arms. Matter of fact, one that pitched on the rubber this season at Founders Park. Give us your thoughts on the latest additions to the staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been certainly great start to the portal for the Gamecocks. And I say great start. You know, there aren't a whole heck of a lot of spaces left. They've been running hot and heavy, and they brought back a lot of players off of last year's team, which I think speaks to the point that maybe last year's team wasn't so bad, but that's another conversation for another day, perhaps. But I like what they've done so far. You know, you mentioned Elijah Foster, who was at Sacred Heart, and he was a 2-year starting pitcher there. You know, he's thrown a ton of innings. He's thrown 132 innings through 72 and a third this year. All of his appearances over those 2 years have been starts. That's 15 each year. But his numbers are a little wonky in some respects. You know, he strikes out some guys, he walks a ton of guys. But you know, he's been a very durable arm for him. I mean, it doesn't look like he's missed a start. You know, he typically goes between 80 and 100 pitches, so it looks like he's been very durable. He just needs some refinement. So you know, he's got plus stuff with a power fastball. So you know, you like getting a guy like that. You know, experience, at least to me, means a lot. You know, when you're getting into when you're getting into this type of play. You know, so they address that with him. You know, they've obviously got a few other guys that they've brought in as well. I think the biggest get so far for these guys came yesterday, was Josh Gunther from Wake Forest. You know what he is, and he's great at it. Like, you don't need to sit here and pretend like, you know, maybe he does this, maybe he does that. He's a closer. He's a late innings guy. He's the guy that you want to have the ball when the game's on the line. You know, maybe it's in the 7th inning with the bases loaded and you know, the team's best hitter is at the plate in a 1-run game. But you know, maybe it's in the 9th inning getting those last 3 outs. I mean, he's a late game guy. You know, he's someone who didn't go 2 innings, but 3 times this past season, and 2 of those 3 times he went 2 innings. You know, he gave up multiple runs, and he only did that 3 times all year. He had 18 appearances where he only where he gave up, or excuse me, he had 18 innings where he threw less than 2 innings. Excuse me. Pause. He had 18 appearances where he threw less than 2 innings, and only 1 time did he give up multiple runs. So, you know, he's a less than 2 inning guy, really a 1 inning guy. Big fastball. He's got a swing and miss changeup. but he's a max effort guy too, 5'11", and he puts every bit of every ounce that he has into every pitch, and you can see that just by watching a few clips of him. So really like both of those pickups. I'm not sure. Eric Parker, the infielder from Georgia, highly thought of high school prospect, was committed to the Gamecocks for a really long time. Definitely shortstop capabilities as a defender. Kind of wiry, strong, long, kind of lanky frame. Needs to keep getting stronger. You wonder if a guy, when they're that talented, why they couldn't get on the field, even for a good team, even at a place where they had some older guys ahead of them. But you get him into your program, coach him up, see what he can do. I think he's a great option at shortstop for South Carolina. He's going to have a couple of JUCO guys to battle and a freshman too. But you take those tools all day long, and he's a multi-year guy as well. So he's only a sophomore coming in here, and we'll see how it all works out.
Yeah, we're gonna go, and we'll come back to Parker here in just a minute. I want to stay with the staff for a second here, John, because I felt like that they did lose. I would go with 4 dudes that entered the portal who I hated to see them lose. Ryder Garino certainly is a guy that projected to be big time, and I think they're going to end up probably. Has he committed somewhere yet? Have you seen? I haven't seen anything. Okay, I got a feeling they're going to end up facing him at some point in time, but. They had some dudes that left. And I know that the catchy phrase for fans has been, well, they need more velo. Well, some of the guys that they lost actually did throw hard, for anybody wondering. And the guys that they're bringing in throw hard as well. Can they throw strikes and develop and all those things? We'll answer all those questions in the fall and into the spring. But Foster at Sacred Heart, you mentioned Gunther threw 546 pitches in 29 innings this year. So it's about 18.8 per inning. That's kind of a closer type deal. The Horowitz kid at Samford, Amp Phillips at USC Upstate, you could maybe argue is potentially the most polished of potential starters, I guess, if you will, of guys that they're bringing in out of the portal. But all these guys, to me, are what the transfer portal is all about when you're signing pitchers, John. Like there are only so many just pure talented, Friday night front end guy from day one. Here he is. Like those guys, there's not handfuls of them where you just grab one and go. Pretty much everybody you're finding in the portal, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, have a lot of projectability, have a lot of potential, have a lot of tools, but they do need to do some things to develop to become the best version of themselves. And I think South Carolina has signed a lot of those guys. So regardless of how talented they are, I really am curious what the fall is going to look like with all of these dudes and how they'll be able to help South Carolina next year.
Well, I mean, if you are a power arm who is old and in the portal and, bona fide Friday night starter, like you're getting drafted.
Right.
I mean, so like you said, there's very few of those guys out there. Now, if you wanted like a Dominic Nyman, like South Carolina tried to get, who ended up at Kentucky, who you look at as a Friday night starter, who's, out there throwing 91 from the left side and a pitcher more than a hard thrower, like you can go get one of those probably. But, the elite guy who has all the tools, who, throws 96, 97, who's, a Friday night guy. That guy's going to get drafted. So, you don't see a whole lot of that. But yeah, I think South Carolina's done a good job. I think they have, from a pitching staff standpoint, it seems to me like they have gone after guys who you pretty much know what their roles are, right? Like we talked about, we talked about Gunther from Wake Forest. He's a late inning guy, and he's going to dominate late. That's what he's always done. That's what he's going to continue to do. Amp Phillips is somebody who, blossomed into a great starting pitcher. He's mainly a 2-pitch guy, so you got to see how that works. At the SEC level, it looked pretty darn good against Clemson in the regional. So that gives you some more positive feeling that it can continue. Cullen Horowitz, the guy from Samford, he's a hard throwing bullpen piece. I mean, Josh Gregor from Louisiana Monroe, he's a absolute bona fide bullpen piece. Elijah Foster, like I said, he's pitched in 30 games and all of them have been starts. That's what you're bringing him in for, is hoping you can develop him into a starting pitcher with a starting role. Now, if South Carolina's got 3 great starters, and Elijah's the 4th. I'm not saying they aren't going to pitch him. They'll figure out a way to throw him out of the bullpen. But you're bringing him in to absolutely compete for a weekend starting spot. So, to me, I think they've done a really good offseason, not only recruiting talent, but also, identifying exactly where their needs are and getting guys to fill those roles. So, you add these guys in with like a Parker Marlott who can do various things with you. You add them in with a Zach Russell who can be a late game guy. Like you've got some guys who already on the roster who can do some different things. You're bringing in guys who what they are, and I think that's a big deal. You need some swing guys, but you also need some guys who know exactly who they are and exactly what to do.
Yeah, I would venture a guess. You mentioned the numbers are getting low as far as how many spots they've got available, unless we get a surprise or two that jump into the portal. And I'm not aware of anything right now. Maybe you are, but I would think that they can find a lefty in the portal somewhere. They would probably try to sign a left-handed. I think all these guys are right-handed. They've signed. I don't think they've signed one left-handed pitcher yet, have they? Out of the portal.
Correct. You're going to need a couple of left-handed pitchers. It wouldn't surprise me if there's not another right-hander that's recruited. Maybe if you can find the right guy, but you need a couple of lefties, and your spots have gotten really low. I haven't done all the math on everything just yet, but I guess I probably should have before I hopped on with you guys this morning. But probably around 18 or 20 guys who are committed when you factor in high school, JUCO, and portal, and they're probably around a dozen guys, maybe 13 or so that are coming back. So you're getting up to that 34 number pretty quick.
I've got 21 here.
Okay, well,
does that seem right? 21?
Maybe I'll have to go back and count them up, and I think there are a couple of things still kind of going on with some commitments that may be impacted on plus draft stuff too. So we'll kind of see how it all shakes out. But the point is the numbers are getting a little bit tight already, and you need a couple more pitchers. You probably need at least one more outfielder, if not 2. I think 2. So you're getting a little tight right now in the portal. We just had a whole bunch of teams eliminated here in the last 10 days or so. So there's probably still more guys to go in as well. Yeah, and maybe a couple more from South Carolina too. Like I'm not going to discount that possibility either.
Yeah, I'm with you as far as more guys going in. I want to switch this over a little bit and talk about the future of high school recruiting too. There was a coach here, not the head coach, but a coach here at one point in time, a little while back under the previous staff, who mentioned to multiple people, and John, I know it was mentioned to you, that you just couldn't win at South Carolina by signing in-state kids. And there is truth in that. Like, you can't only sign South Carolina kids and expect to go win. Like, no, that is correct. But you do have to sign the kids in South Carolina. Mike was the voice of Gamecock baseball for how long?
10 years.
Yeah,
you're the voice of Gamecock baseball.
Yeah, he was
hard to believe, John.
That's where he got golden tones from the Miami Miracle. I
always love Charlie Mack Alexander. Sorry,
Charlie.
Well, Charlie didn't do baseball, but he loves baseball. I'll pass that along to him.
Well, one of these days during the summer, we need to do like a all-time South Carolina broadcaster power rankings.
Oh,
not get Mike's opinion. We'll just kind of slide him in there where we feel like.
Okay. As well as beat writers. We'll throw that
Yeah,
in
we
there
can
too.
do that too. We can do that too.
Yeah, and radio
I'll tell you
hosts
this:
and
we're all down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like we're all tied for last.
I'm at the very bottom of that totem pole. Whatever category I go into, I can tell you that. I'm just gonna get out. I'm gonna get in front of this. I'm gonna put a tie at the top. I'm gonna go Tommy Moody and Tom Price, and then after that,
Hey, I'm all for those guys.
I mean, think about
I'm
how
all
much you
for those
learned from
guys.
Tommy Moody and Tom Price combined.
I know every name in the history of Gamecock athletics thanks to Tom Price.
Right.
I mean,
And
holy smokes.
thankfully, he didn't get hit by a car on the side of a road on the way to LSU or Mississippi State or wherever that was.
Coming back home from Mississippi State. Yeah,
On the way
almost was on the heavenly gates of what would that be? I-20, whatever we were on.
I remember Reese telling me the story. Literally, when the bus got back, he was like, "You wouldn't believe it. He was just going to wander out into traffic, and it was going to be over for him."
That's about right.
Sorry, I'm not laughing.
That's about right.
It was just the
Anyway,
way the
where
story
were
was
we?
told.
So
The high school kids. John, you've covered this state and the high school recruiting in it for years. I love high school baseball in the state. I think we've got great coaches. I think we have great players, and they all know one another. I've been pretty disappointed in what I've learned in the recent months about how South Carolina has approached recruiting high school players. And, Clemson, I mean, they're always going to sign some guys, but and I know that they want to sign in-state guys, but Eric Bakich has a little bit of leg in him. He likes to go out and get dudes from all over the place and bring them down. And now you got this coastal deal going on here, and Matt Williams does know the state of South Carolina inside and out, as he should. His father's a legend. Matt's a legend. I mean, they're excellent. And coastal success, I mean, you look at that ballpark, you look at what's going on up there, they are attracting kids. So I just want to get your perspective on the recent recruiting of in-state guys and building a true foundation instead of having to build a team every year, by going to the portal and adding 10, 12, 15 guys, whatever it is, building a true foundation in Columbia the way that they once had it here.
I mean, that's not really a thought process right now. I mean, if we're just being honest, and it hadn't been much of a thought process in several recent years. That's something that's important to Monty. I know. I mean, Monty's a long time. I mean, a forever in-state guy, not a long time, a forever in-state guy. Has those relationships and so forth, and he's always been willing to take the in-state kid. And here, just as a big picture thing, just to kind of put things into perspective. I mean, baseball has always been a partial scholarship sport.
Right.
Like it's been 11.7. So you have to get guys. One recruiting coordinator phrased it to me one time is get guys at the right price, right? Like you can't go out and spend 80% of scholarship on a guy who's going to throw 15 innings out of the bullpen for you. That's not good value there. But that's to the point where when you go get your in-state guys, you can go get a guy for 25% and get them on life scholarship, and they're paying only a little bit out of pocket. Well, that you need guys like that on the roster because you had 11.7 scholarships to fill for 35 spots. Mm-hmm. So you always needed guys who were walk-ons or who were low scholarship guys, and often those guys are in state. So and sometimes those guys blossom into Scott Wingo, and sometimes they don't. But you've always had to go get those guys. But even if they weren't always your best players, they provided a little bit of that South Carolina play for pride, mentality, and growing up watching the championship teams or whatever, and just South Carolina baseball was in their blood. They lived and breathed it like an Evan Stone type of guy, and but now baseball is changing a lot, and a coach will perceive that his team sucks, so you go out and get the best players you can out of the transfer portal, and the more high school kids you have committed, the the fewer spots you get in the portal. And, they slice this class, in more than half when they got here. There's 6 high school recruits coming in. I think it was up at about 14 or 15 at one point in time. And, they just got rid of a bunch of guys, and a couple of guys made a decision themselves. And, that's what's given them an opportunity to bring so many guys back from last year's team and also be able to hit the portal like they did. But, I agree with you, at least in some degree. You've always got to recruit some of the best guys in state. And, they've let a couple of guys get away here lately. But, in the world of baseball now, where you can give out full scholarships and, be a little bit more freewheeling than that, then, you're probably going to have programs who, maybe try to go get the best players more often versus, getting the guy from in-state for the right price, or just getting the guy for the right price in general. So, there are a whole lot of elements to it. You can never just completely ignore in-state recruiting. And I think we're close to that point right now, but, that's also kind of the college baseball world at this moment too. So I don't really like it. I'm hoping that eventually it balances out. Every coach will tell you exactly what you said. You want to recruit from the high school ranks and grow them up in your program and just supplement your roster through the portal. Basically every coach in America is going to tell you that. And basically none of the coaches out there actually do that in practice.
It's a great answer. Phil, you can cut that and clip that. John, as far as the I don't know if there's a guy that we didn't go over that I was going to ask you about. There is one. I'm sorry. And then we'll move on to the World Series. The Sutter kid from Purdue. So look, they have a first baseman. His name's Bo Hollins. We was watching him play. But this kid is coming in technically as a first baseman DH. I had done a little bit of digging on him. He has played in other areas, but they recruited his bat, John. What do you think his future is in Columbia?
Yeah, well, you said it right. They recruited his bat, and I don't know how much y'all followed South Carolina baseball this past year, but South Carolina needs some of those. And you find a spot to.
Was that tongue in cheek, or what are you getting? What are you getting at there?
You find a spot for him if he's going to put up those kind of offensive numbers, and I think I said it on this show last week. Maybe I didn't, but God love Evan Stone. I do. But they had him at DH for a handful of games last year. Like, why? You don't DH Evan Stone. You probably, if he's going to play, you put him in the outfield. But they DH'd him some because they didn't have guys that they could put in the DH spot. There's nothing wrong with bringing that kind of guy in here and putting him in the DH spot. I don't know if trying to fit him in at second base or third base or moving all these pieces around, I don't really think that's worthwhile. To me, and this is just my opinion, folks can disagree, but to me, it's a red flag when you play first base or DH for, a Purdue team that's not elite, and then try to come into a South Carolina and play at the SEC level and, play a more, a defensive position that's defined by, being able to play better defensively. So it's second base or third. Now he played third base for 2 years in JUCO, had a career 9.14 fielding percentage, which isn't all that great. He was 9.12 1 year and 9.16 another year. He played third base twice already this summer. He's had 2 chances, made 1 error. I'm not saying he can't play second or third. I would be cautious into penciling him into one of those spots right now.
John, I'm confused. He's coming to be a DH and hit. Like what? Why? Who said he's trying to play a position?
He did a interview with Phil Kornblut, Jamie.
You talking about Sutter?
Sports app, 6:00.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. My apologies there, John. I was reading stats. Yeah, tonight 6:00 on the Chief Sports app.
Look at John, the the ultimate Barnum and Bailey promoter over here.
We owe
Yeah,
him
yeah.
money,
So
yeah.
he did an interview with Phil last week, and he said, I'm working this summer at second base and third base, and hope to play, basically hoping to play one of those positions, and that was encouraged by the coaching staff.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean,
right.
you practice a position, but he's coming in to be he's an all Big Ten bat. So I mean, it's not like he's chopped liver, and he's coming in
Right.
the DH, which, as you mentioned, they didn't have a great DH last year, no matter who they put in there. That includes Whittle, that includes other guys. So, like, I wouldn't focus on what he can't do defensively. I would focus on the fact that they need offense. They weren't very good on offense either. It wasn't all bad pitching, and so why not bring in a bat that can help provide a little power?
Well,
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
right.
That's my
I don't
point.
want people to think that he's coming to be an infielder and then he fails and, well, they clearly missed on that. No, he's coming in to be a DH. That's
right. Well, yes. I mean, that's what I think too. And there's been a lot of talk on the Big Spur message boards here over the last few days that he was going to play second base, and I'm trying to caution against that.
Yeah, I would caution.
I think Patrick Evans is your second baseman, the kid from Florence Darlington. That's just my 2 cents on that. I think he's the kid who's going to end up taking that job. But
he could be. I mean, shortstop's going to be intriguing. Like he's gonna play some over there. I mean, if he's over at second base, I mean, one of his biggest deals is he's got a big arm. I mean, he can make the throws from the left side of the infield, and you waste a little bit of his skill if he's over there at second base. So, I mean, they're going to give him every shot to win shortstop. Will Craddock is a guy who's excellent, especially from a defensive standpoint, and can play short. Jack Reynolds, they recruited to play short. Eric Parker from Georgia, they've recruited to try it short. So you've got 4 guys who are, potential shortstops who are going to battle it out over there, and we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, I don't know how it's going to shake out. Like, if you were to tell me that Henry Kazmir was coming back to next year's team, Henry Kazmir would be the shortstop all day as we sit here right now, in my opinion, over all of those guys. But, he's not. So we'll see exactly how it all comes together. But, there's going to be 3 or 4 guys who are competing for that shortstop position in the fall.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know that Eric Parker would be here if Kazmar was coming back either.
Probably not. I mean, he's a top 200 prospect, so he's not coming where he can't have a chance of playing.
Right, and he had originally committed to South Carolina before he decommitted and committed to Georgia. Jack Reynolds is another guy who originally was planning to come to South Carolina, actually committed to Clemson, and then they let Monty go. He stayed there and then for 1 year and then went to JUCO in Florida. Of course, he got hurt this year, but all right. John, here on the College World Series, we're going to get a Arkansas LSU matchup. So for what it's worth, if Duke gets in today, it'll tie it. But even though the SEC, I think, has been disappointing in the postseason, they still have the most teams in Omaha with 2 right now. So we'll see what happens in the Murray State Duke game. As a college baseball fan, just out of curiosity, is there a team that maybe a lot of our audience is not focused on that you think could really do some damage in Omaha? Because if you don't have one, I've got one, but I'm curious what yours is.
Well, I mean, you've got to really like what Arizona was able to do. They came out and took down North Carolina over the weekend, bouncing back from a tough loss, big loss, the opening game, and won a slugfest on Saturday to extend it to Sunday, and then outpitched them on Sunday 4-3 behind a freshman arm. They've won a lot of games here down the stretch, and they're kind of one of those hot teams. So they jump out to me a little bit. They kind of coasted through their regional. I don't know who you're angling for.
Oregon State.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I like Oregon State, man. The more I watch them play, they can beat you in a lot of different ways.
More than Arkansas?
No, I like Arkansas to win the whole thing. I just mean a team that can do damage that's a little off the radar.
They're an amazing story in general, what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
3 national titles in Corvallis. I mean, I don't know where they get their kids from and how they do it. Culture is obviously a real thing, spanning 2 different coaches over there. But there is an impressive story in college baseball over the last 20 years, as there is out there. They really are.
Mm-hmm. They've only lost 3 games since May 1st. I mean, they're hot, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And in North Carolina, like they are just they can't get over the hump. You know, they've come close to winning it all, then they didn't. Then they've gone through a stretch. Then they had to replace Coach Fox. This is the second time. I mean, I had them when they lost to Auburn in the Super a couple of years ago. They gave up like a 13 spot in the first inning of a game 3 at home.
Yeah.
And you have it there. All you got to do is you win game 1. All you got to do is win one of the next 2, and you gag it away. I mean, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of pain right now in Chapel Hill.
Who do you like to win this thing, John? Are you a believer in the Razorbacks?
Yeah, I had Arkansas in my D1 baseball bracket that I filled out.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with them. You know, I had them facing Auburn, who I thought was the second best team I watched this year. And obviously the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers took care of that one pretty easily. I mean, they're playing good ball.
They are.
Hell of a pitching staff. You know, they play good defense. And they got a couple of dudes in there. Caden Bodine would be a starting catcher for anybody out there.
Yeah.
I know he was tried to be wooed from Coastal Carolina before through the portal, and you know he stuck with them. So,
where's he from, John?
You
know,
I think he's from the Northeast.
Okay,
I'm not sure. I can Google him real quick.
Yeah, I was just curious because I've seen him now a couple of times. Like, damn,
yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Coastal has to do. Again,
they've done that forever.
They've done that forever. They're not beating Carolina and Clemson on many kids, but there's always an alternative. That's the beauty about being coaches. Like you find the advantages and disadvantages. You know, for Jim Tolman at Carolina, it was, I'm going to get, when everybody else is just focusing on high school kids, I'm going to get the best JUCOs out of California and Florida. And they don't have the success they do without that. And then other SEC programs started copying them. You go back to the media guides during those 2000s, and Tolman was always adamant. Put the height, the weight, the hometown, little bio, you know, he likes cheese on his nachos instead of guacamole. And then always, where were they drafted out of high school? Where were they drafted out of JUCO? He wanted prospects. He absolutely wanted he didn't care where they were from half the time. He wanted prospects. And just kind of looking at what they're trying to do now, it seems like a similar type of course, the portal is a thing now, so you can shortcut that a bit. But you want guys that have projectability to be pros, because typically if they have that kind of skill set, they can become good college players if they're not already there.